Alright, Courtney here, Fiber Fox Studios, and to get started we are going to, you can either chain 5 or you can do a magic circle, which is what I'm going to do. So to do the magic circle, you're going to take your yarn, this is the tail right here, and you're going to lay it over these two fingers, and then you're going to take your working yarn back here, and you're just going to go ahead and pinch down with your thumb right there to keep that from slipping on you, and you're going to take your working yarn and bring it around, and then you're going to twist it over right here. So we've got this crisscross going on. Now I'm going to take my hook and I'm going to slide under the very first strand of yarn, and I'm going to come back here and I'm going to grab that second strand, bringing it back underneath the first. And then I'm going to turn my hook like this to form a ring right there. And now you can go ahead and just let all that drop. You've got your tail over here, and you can go ahead and grab your tail in that loop that you've just created. And you can grab your yarn and pull through, doing a chain. And then now you've made your magic circle. So for this project, we're going to chain up 3. So I've got 1 chain already. So I'm going to do my second and my third, and now we're going to go and wrap our yarn around our hook, and we're going to go back down into this loop that we've made, and we're going to do a double crochet. So we're back in there, we're going to grab our yarn, pulling up a loop, grab our yarn and pull through 2, grab our yarn and pull through 2. So that chain 3 is counting as our first double crochet. We've just done our second. We're going to need to do 1 more. So we're going to wrap our yarn around our hook, go back down into this big old loop that we've made, grab our yarn and pull up a loop, grab our yarn and pull through 2, grab our yarn and pull through 2. So that's our first little granny stitch. Now we're going to chain 2, 1 and 2, and we're going to come back around. We've got our chain 2 right there, wrap our yarn around our hook. We're going to come back down this circle, making sure that we're working around both the tail and the loop that was formed. So we're just going to work around both of those, and we're going to pull up a loop, grab and pull through 2, grab and pull through 2. So we're going to need to do 2 more double crochets to finish this row. So you're going to go back in just like we've been doing, pull through 2, pull through 2. Now we need 1 more, so we're going to wrap our yarn, go back down into that circle, pull up a loop, pull through 2, and pull through 2. So now we've got 2 sets of 3 double crochets separated by chain 2 space. So that is the end of row 1 for this shawl. So you're going to go ahead and find your little tail right there, and we're going to go ahead and pull that tail to close that loop. So this is the end of row 1. We're going to do a total of 10 rows of the granny before we switch over to the floral lace. So right here I've got my row 1 already completed. So to start each and every row, you're going to begin and end each and every row exactly the same way when you're working the granny portion of the shawl. So we're over here, we're going to go ahead and chain up 3, 1, 2, and 3. And now we're going to turn our work, and this is where we're going to be doing our increase at. We're going to come down here into this very first stitch, right there into that first stitch that we have our chain 3 coming out of. We're going to go in there and we're going to go into the top of that double crochet. So we're going to do 2 more double crochets essentially. So we've got our yarn wrapped around our hook. We're going to go right there into the top of that double crochet and pull up a loop, grab our yarn and pull through 2, grab your yarn and pull through 2. So now we're going to do 1 more double crochet right there in that same exact stitch. So right there in the very first stitch of the row, we're doing 3 double crochets into it. Our first double, or our chain 3, is counting as our first double crochet. And now we do not need to chain anything. We're going to wrap our yarn, and we're going to come over here to this chain 2 spot. This is the peak of our shawl. So the point, so we're going to go ahead and do 3 double crochets right there into that space. So we're going right there into that chain 2 space, working 3 double crochets. Here's number 2, and here's number 3. And now we're going to chain 2, 1 and 2. And then we're going to wrap our yarn. We're going to go back down that same chain 2 space, and we're going to do a double crochet. We're going to do 3 more on this side, but here's where you're going to need your stitch marker. I think it's best just to get in a habit when you're doing this particular one, this particular shawl, to go ahead and put a stitch marker in your chain 2 space, because that chain 2 space, that's your peak. It's forming the point, and we don't want to work past that. So throw a little stitch marker in there so that you always know where your center is, essentially. So now we've done 1 double crochet. We need to do 2 more here into the same exact space. So we're working right there in that same chain 2 space. We're going to do 2 more double crochets right there into that same space. So as you can see, we're starting to form a little triangle here. So now we're going to be going over here, and we're going to do this on every single row. We're going to end them all exactly the same way. So each one, we're going to be going over here and finding the last stitch in this granny stitch right here. We're going to come right here to the end. So we've just worked here in this chain 2 space, and we're going to come right over here. We're going to skip this first double crochet, skip the second double crochet, and in this case we're going to be going into the top of the chain 3. So count out from the bottom, 1, 2, and 3, and we're going to be doing 3 double crochets right there into the top of that chain 3, and that's the end of our row. So we're going to do 3 double crochets right there into that, and we're going to continue on the same exact manner until we have completed a total of 10 rows of this granny stitch for this particular shawl. So I've got 1 row, 2 rows done. We're going to do 1 more row together. So we're going to chain up 3, 1, 2, and 3. And we're going to turn our work, and then we're going to go right back down here into this very first stitch. So we're not jumping over anywhere. We're just going right here into this very first stitch, and we're going to go ahead and do a double crochet. And we're going to do 1 more double crochet because our chain 3 is counting as our first double crochet. So we've got sets of 3 double crochets to form our little granny stitch. So now we're going to be jumping over, and this time we're going to be going in to the little space in between these 2 granny stitches, and we're going to do our 3 double crochets right there into that space. So there's 1. Now we're going to come back down again, working right around that stitch. I keep losing my yarn, I'm sorry. There's 2. And 3. And now here's our stitch marker again. We're back up at our peak. So we're going to work 2 sets of 3 double crochets separated by a chain 2 space. So there's my first one. So we're going to do 3 double crochets. There's number 2. There's number 3. Now we're going to chain 2, 1 and 2, and we're going to go back down that same exact space, and we're going to do 3 more double crochets into that same exact space. And you can go ahead and take out your stitch marker now and move it on up. We're going to go ahead and put it around the chain 2s. So just slip in there to those chain 2s, and it's going to keep our peak marked. Now I'm going to do my second double crochet and my third. And now I'm going to come over here. I'm going to work a set of 3 double crochets in between these 2 granny stitches. That's the 3 double crochets from the previous row. We're just going to work in between those 2, doing 3 double crochets. And now here we are again at the end of the row. So we're going to skip this first stitch, skip the second stitch, and this is again going to be a chain 3. So we're going to work into the top of that chain 3 and do 3 double crochets all into that same stitch. So we're working right there. Oops, sorry, bumped the camera, my bad. We're going to work right there into that same exact stitch. Ahead and do another double crochet right there into that same exact stitch. So we're just going to keep working those double crochets, a total of 3 of them, here at the end of the row into the very last chain, very last stitch. We're going to do the 3 double crochets. Now we're going to lay down our work and have a look. So see, you're forming that triangle shape that makes up the shawl. So you're going to keep on going 1, 2, 3. So now you're going to move on to row 4 through 10, doing the exact same thing. And then we're going to meet back up at the end of row 10. And I'm going to show you how to change up yarn, how to bind off, switch your yarn if you're going to do that. But most importantly, I'm going to show you how to work the lace portion of this shawl. Alright, so you're meeting back up with me. You've completed a total of 10 rows of this granny stitch. So you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. So make sure that you've got 10. And then for me, I'm going to be binding off and starting a new yarn because I'm going to have the lace portion in a completely different color. So for me, what I'm going to do is I'm going to chain up 2, and I'm going to clip this yarn, and then I'm going to pull it through and add on new yarn. If you are not doing the changing your yarn, you will not need to do this step. But for those of you who are going to follow along with me, I just chain up 2 and then I cinch it down to bind off. So now I'm going to go ahead and pull out the center. I like to do center pull on all my balls, so I'm going to go ahead and find that, pull it out, and join a new color. So to join on my new yarn, I'm going to go ahead and get my tail. I'm going to do a slip knot. I like to do the slip knot by wrapping the yarn around my finger and then taking the yarn that's working yarn that's in between my thumb and index finger and moving it over between these two, and then pinching and pulling back. And that's how I make my slip knot. So I'm going to go ahead and make my slip knot. Now I'm going to find the corner of the stitch on this side. So this is row 10 right here. And I'm going to count up because this is a chain that began this. So 1, 2, and 3. And I'm going to go into the top of that third stitch. I'm going to go ahead and put that slip knot back on my hook. And then I'm going to grab and pull up. And then I'm going to grab both the tail and the working yarn and chain 1. And then I can go ahead and let my tail fall to the back. I just want to kind of lock that in place there. So now what we're going to be doing on this row is we're going to be doing double crochet, chain 1 in each and every stitch. So I've already chained up 1 here, so I'm going to go ahead and chain up 2 more. So that's my double crochet. That's what that's going to count as. Now I'm going to chain 1 more, and then I'm going to turn my work. So that's my double crochet, chain 1 to start out this row. And you're going to be beginning and ending this row exactly the same way. There's only 1 row of this, but we're going to wrap our yarn around our hook, and we're going to come back into the same exact space right there in that same stitch, and we're going to do another double crochet right there. Let's go ahead and complete your double crochet. So now we're going to chain 1, and we're going to go ahead and find the top of the very next stitch, and we're going to work a double crochet into that. And if you need to kind of pull your stitches apart so you can see what you're doing, feel free to do that. It's not going to hurt anything. So right here is my very next stitch. So I'm going to go into the top of that double crochet from the previous row, and I'm going to do another double crochet. Now I'm going to chain 1, and I'm going to go down into the very next stitch, go right there into the top of that stitch, and I'm going to do another double crochet. Now I'm going to chain 1, and I'm going to go right there into the top of the very next stitch, and I'm going to do a double crochet. I'm going to chain 1, going into the very next stitch right there on the top of that double crochet from the previous row, and do another double crochet, chain 1. So you're going to continue on down, and we're going to meet back up when you get to the peak of the shawl. It's going to be where you have your stitch marker. We're going to work into that chain 2 space at the peak together. So you're going to go ahead and pause here, work all the way up the rest of the way, doing a double crochet, chain 1 into each and every stitch, and then we'll meet up at the peak so I can show you how to work that. So we're back up here together. We're at the peak, and we know we're there because we've got that stitch marker in place. So I've got a chain 1 already on my hook. I'm going to go into this chain 2 space and do a double crochet. I'm going to chain 1. I'm going to do another double crochet right back into that same chain 2 space. And then I'm going to chain 2, 1 and 2. And now we're going to be working our way down. So I'm going to go ahead and move my stitch marker out of my way real quick. We'll place that back in just a second, but we've got a chain 2 on our hook. And we're going to go back down in that same chain 2 space. And we're going to do a double crochet, chain 1, double crochet, right there in that same exact space. It's looking like that. Now we're going to chain 1, and we're going to scoot our stitches over and make sure we do not miss this first one. We want to make sure we go into the very next stitch. So we've got a chain 1 already on our hook. And we're going to go right there in the top of that next stitch and do a double crochet. Now we're going to chain 1, and we're going to continue in the same way, doing a double crochet, chain 1, all the way down this next side. So we're going to continue working exactly as we did over here. We're going to do the same thing all the way rest of the way down that row. And I'm going to meet back up with you when you get here to the end of your row so I can show you how to finish off. Alright, so we're meeting up over here at the end of this row. I've got a chain 1 on my hook already. I've got 2 stitches left to work into, so the very next stitch we're going to do just as we have been, and we're going to do a double crochet, chain 1. Now we're here at the very last stitch in this row, so we're going to go into it and we're going to do a double crochet. Now we're going to chain 1, and we're going to go back into that same exact stitch. Same one, we're going to go back in there, and we're going to do another double crochet to end out that row. So that is how you're going to be ending those rows when you're doing the double crochet, chain 1 to start out our lace portion. So now we're going to go ahead and move up to our next row. We're going to chain 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So we're going to chain 5, and we are going to turn our work. Now we're going to skip this first chain 1 space right here, and we're going to go right here into the very next chain 1 space and do a single crochet. Now we're going to chain 5 again. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to be skipping 2 chain 1 spaces. So we're going to skip 2 chain 1 spaces and go here into the third and do a single crochet. And we're going to do that on down until we get to the peak. So we're going to chain 5 again. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Now we're going to skip the next 2 chain 1 spaces and go into the third and do a single crochet. Chain 5 again. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. We're going to skip the next 2 chain 1 spaces and go into the third and do a single crochet. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Skip the next 2 chain 1 spaces, go into the third and do a single crochet. So you're going to go ahead and continue on down, and then we're going to meet back up as you approach that peak, and I'll show you how you handle that. Alright, so we're up here, we've approached our peak, and as you're going to see here, you've skipped these 2 spaces, and you've done your single crochet right here, but now we're right here at the very peak of our shawl. We're in the chain 2 space. So the way we're going to handle this is we're going to chain 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and we're going to go into that chain 2 space, and we're going to do a single crochet. And now we can go ahead and take out that stitch marker. because we can move it up in just a second. Now we're going to chain 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And we're going to have to repeat what we did over here so that we end up very even on each side. So in this case, we're not going to be skipping anything. We're going to come right here and in that first chain 1 space, and we're going to do our single crochet right there. Now we're going to begin back doing our chain 5s and skipping 2 spaces, and we're going to continue just like we've been working. So we're going to skip 2 and go into the 3rd, and we're going to continue in that same exact manner all the way down, and then we're going to meet back up when you get at the end so we can finish out this row together. So we'll be coming back in just a moment when we get down here where we just have a few stitches left to work in. So we're here at the end of this row. I've got a chain 5 already on my hook. I'm going to be skipping these next 2 spaces right here and going into the 3rd. Oops. And now I'm going to chain 2, and I'm going to do a double crochet, and I'm going to come right here into the top of the chain 3. So I'm going to count up 1, 2, and 3. So I'm going to do a double crochet right there in the top of that 3rd stitch. And this is going to act as my last chain 5 space. So now I'm going to chain 1 and turn my work. And we're going to go ahead and go right back into the top of that same stitch there, that double crochet, pull up a loop and do a single crochet right there. Now we're going to chain 3, 1, 2, and 3. And we're going to come over here and we're going to go into the 3rd center chain here on this chain 5 space. So you're going to count 1, 2, 3, go into the top of that, right there into that 3rd chain, and do a single crochet. Now we're going to begin doing 8 double crochets into the very next chain 5 space. So we're going to come right here to the next chain 5 space, and we're going to do 8 double crochets. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. And we're always going to go back and check our count because we want to make absolutely sure that we get the exact number of stitches that we need. So make sure that you're not going to accidentally count this chain 5 over here. You just stick your finger in there and separate it, and you can see what's worked into this chain 5 space right here. And that's what we're counting. So we're going to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So we've got 8 stitches. Now we're going to do a single crochet into the top of the 3rd chain on the next chain 5 space. So we're just going to jump right over here to this chain 5 space. We're going to go into that 3rd chain right there in the center, and we're going to do a single crochet to lock all that down. Now we're going to chain 4, 1, 2, 3, and 4. And this is where it gets a little bit different. We're going to turn our work right now. So now what we're going to be doing is we're going to work the floral fan section right here. That whole floral section that makes up the lace work. We're going to work one portion at a time. And then it'll all flow together really nicely, as you'll see. So I've got a chain 4 on my hook. I'm going to go ahead and wrap my yarn around my hook. And I'm going to come down here and I'm going to make sure I've separated out so I'm not counting this chain 5 right here. I want to go into the very first double crochet that's in this section. So I want to go right there on the top of that double crochet, and I want to pull up a loop. I want to grab my yarn and I want to pull through 2, and I want to hold it. Now I want to wrap my yarn again, and I want to go into the very next stitch right there beside it, the top of that double crochet, pull up a loop, grab my yarn and pull through 2, and I want to hold it. I've got 3 loops on my hook. Now I'm going to grab my yarn and I'm going to turn my hook down towards my project so I can pull through all 3 loops on my hook. Now I'm going to chain 3, 1, 2, and 3. And I'm going to repeat that step in all of the rest of these stitches. So we're going to work the next 2, crocheting those 2 together. So we're going to do the same thing, insert and pull up a loop, pull through 2, and we're going to hold it, 2 loops on our hook, wrap again, go down to the very next stitch, insert into the top of that, pulling up a loop, pull through 2, and we're going to hold it, 3 loops on our hook. Now we're going to grab our yarn and pull through all 3 loops. Now we're going to chain 3 again, 1, 2, and 3. We're going to do the same thing with these next 2 stitches. So we're going to go ahead and wrap our yarn. We're going to go into the very next stitch. We're going to pull up a loop. We're going to pull through 2, and we're going to hold it with 2 loops on our hook. We're going to wrap our yarn again. We're going to go into the very next stitch right here, insert our hook, grab our yarn and pull up a loop, pull through 2, and we're going to hold it. 3 loops are now on our hook. So now we're going to grab our yarn and pull through all 3 loops. Now we're going to do that again, 1, 2, and 3. So we're going to do it a total of 4 times so that we have 4 of these little clusters right there. So I'm going to wrap my yarn. I'm going to go here into the very next stitch. It's the last time we're having to do it. I'm going to pull up a loop. I'm going to grab my yarn and pull through 2, and I'm going to hold it with 2 loops on my hook. Wrap my yarn again, go into this very last stitch right here. As you can see, it's our last one in that section. We're going to grab our yarn, pull up a loop, grab our yarn, pull through 2, and we're going to hold it with 3 loops on our hook. So now we're going to grab our yarn and pull through all 3 loops. Now we're going to chain 2, 1 and 2, and now we're going to go here to this chain that we started out with, this chain 3. In this row, we're going to go into the center stitch, so we're going to go right there in the center, second one, and we're going to do a single crochet. Now we are going to chain 1, and we're going to turn our work. So we're now back in the direction that we started out in when we began this row. Now we're going to do a single crochet around that chain 2, and we're going to do another single crochet around that chain 2. So we're going to do 2 single crochets around the chain 2 space. Now we're going to jump over here into this chain 3 space, and we're going to work around this chain 3, and we're going to do a single crochet. Now we're going to wrap our yarn. We're going to do a half double crochet right around this chain 3. So we're going to go insert and go under. We're going to pull up a loop. We've got 3 loops. We're going to grab our yarn and pull through all 3 loops. That's a half double. Now we're going to do 2 double crochets right around that same chain 3. So here's our first double crochet. Here's our second. Now we're going to do a half double crochet again. And a single crochet. Now we're just going to repeat that same exact thing into these next 2 chain 3s that we have, the chain 3 spaces. So we're going to end up with a total of 3 of these little fans worked over and in between these 4 stitches. We're going to be working in our chain 3 spaces. So we're going to come over here into this next chain 3, jumping right over without chaining anything. So we're not going to chain anything. We're just going to jump over and do a single crochet. Now we're going to wrap our yarn. We're going to go in and underneath that chain 3, and we're going to grab and pull up a loop. We're going to pull through all 3 loops to do our half double. Now we're going to do 2 double crochets around that chain 3 space, or chain 3. There's my second double crochet. Now I'm going to wrap. I'm going to go around the chain 3, pulling up a loop. I'm going to pull through all 3 to do the half double. And now I'm going to do a single crochet. All worked around that same chain 3. Now I'm going to jump into this last section. This is our last time that we have to do this. I'm going to do a single crochet. Wrap and do a half double crochet. Do 2 double crochets. Do another half double crochet. And 1 single crochet. And that ends that out. So that's what your work is looking like so far. So now we're going to come over here. This is our chain 4. We're going to come on this chain 4. We're going to do a single crochet. Then we're going to go into the third chain up. So 1, 2, 3. And do a single crochet directly into that chain. Now we're going to chain 1. And we're going to come over here to this next chain 5 space. And what you want to make sure is that you don't accidentally go into this one that you've worked in already. And you'll know if you pull on your work, you'll see it lifts it up. So you want to go over here to this very next one and go into that center chain. So count 1, 2, go into that third chain and do a single crochet. Now you want to chain 3, 1, 2, and 3. And we want to jump over here to this next chain 5 space. And we want to go again into that center stitch. So we want to go right there in the center to anchor that down. And now we're going to go over here into the very next chain 5 space. And we're going to do 8 double crochet again. So we're back to doing our 8 double crochets. So there's my second. Here's my third. Number 4. Number 5, number 6, number 7, and number 8. And we're going to go back and check our count. I want to make absolutely positive we have 8. So I'm going to make sure I push my finger in here in between so I don't accidentally count this part of this chain 5 as a double crochet. So if you look right here, it's real easy to mistake that as just a double crochet. So you just want to push that down and away. And then we're going to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So we've got 8. So now we're going to go over here to the next chain 5 space. And we're going to go into 1, 2, 3 into the top of that third, or right there into that third stitch, I should say. Into the third chain and do a single crochet. Now we're going to chain 4. 1, 2, 3, and 4, and we're going to turn our work. So we're going to be creating this over here yet again, and we're going to do that by starting out doing our double crochet cluster. So we're going to crochet 2 together. So we're going to isolate. I'm using my finger to pull that chain 5 over so that I don't accidentally try to work over here. I want to work right here into this first stitch. I've got my yarn wrapped around my hook. I'm going to go into the top of that double crochet and pull up a loop. Grab my yarn and pull through 2 and hold it. Now I'm going to wrap again. I'm going to go here into the very next stitch. Insert my hook. Grab my yarn and pull up a loop. Grab my yarn and pull through 2. Now I've got 3 loops on my hook. So I'm going to hold it right there with 3 loops. I'm going to grab my yarn and pull through all 3 loops. Now I'm going to chain 3, 1, 2, and 3. And I'm going to repeat that a total of 3 more times so that I've joined together, crocheted 2 together in sets of 2 for a total of 4 of these clusters. So I've got a chain 3 on my hook already. I'm going to wrap my yarn around my hook. I'm going to go right here into this next stitch. And if you pull up on your work, you'll be able to see that you've already worked into this one. So this right here is my very next stitch. So I'm going to wrap my yarn around my hook. I'm going to go right here into the very next stitch. Insert my hook. Grab my yarn and pull up a loop. Grab my yarn and pull through 2 and hold it. I'm going to wrap my yarn around my hook again. I'm going to go into the very next stitch. Insert my hook. Grab my yarn. Pull up a loop. Grab my yarn and pull through 2 and hold it. I've got 3 loops on my hook now. So I'm going to go ahead and grab my yarn and just make sure you turn your hook down towards your project so that you're not trying to come through this way. You want to just turn it down and pull through all 3 loops. Now I'm going to chain 3 again. 1, 2, and 3. And this is going to be the 3rd time that I'm doing it. I've got to do a total of 4 times. Then grab, pull up a loop, pull through 2, hold it. Wrap my yarn again, go into the very next stitch, insert my hook, grab my yarn and pull up a loop, grab my yarn and pull through 2, and hold it with 3 loops on my hook. I'm going to grab my yarn and pull through all 3 loops. I'm going to chain 3 again, 1, 2, and 3. This is my last set, so I'm going to go ahead and insert right here my finger to kind of push that chain 5 space over out of the way to make sure I'm going to work into these 2 stitches. So I'm going to go right here into this stitch. It's the very next one. I'm going to pull up my loop, pull through 2, and hold it. Wrap my yarn again, go here into the very next stitch, insert my hook, grab my yarn, pull up a loop, grab my yarn, pull through 2, and hold it. 3 loops are on my hook now, so I can go ahead and grab my yarn, pull through all 3 loops. Now I'm going to chain 2 because we're at the end here. And now I'm going to go over here. I'm going to go to this chain 3 this time is what it is. And we're going to go into that chain 3 right there in the center. So I'm going to skip the first chain and go right there in the second. Insert my hook and pull up a loop. Pull through 2 to form that single crochet. Now I'm going to chain 1 and I'm going to turn my work. So this is what we have so far. Okay. Making sense, hopefully. Now that we turned our work, we're going to go ahead and do 2 single crochets right there on that chain 2 space. So we're going to do 2 single crochets. Now we're going to jump over here into this chain 3 space, and we're going to be working into that. We're going to do a single crochet. We are going to do a half double crochet. So I've wrapped my yarn around my hook. I'm going down underneath this chain and I'm pulling up a loop. So I've got 3 loops on my hook. I'm going to grab my yarn and pull through all 3 loops. I'm going to do 2 double crochets right beside each other, right working around the same chain 3. So there's 2. And now I'm going to do another half double and a single crochet, and that ends that little section. I'm going to repeat that in the next 2 sections, the next 2 chain 3 spaces that we created. So we're just going to do the same thing: single crochet, half double crochet, 2 double crochets. There's 1, here's 2, and then a half double crochet and a single crochet, all into the same chain 3. Now we're going to jump over here into the last chain 3 space, and we're going to do that again. Single crochet, half double, 2 double crochet. So here's 1 double crochet, 2 double crochet, a half double crochet, and a single crochet. And now we're going to be jumping over here onto this chain 4. We're going to do a single crochet, and then we're going to count up 1, 2, and 3, making sure we're going to that 3rd chain and do a single crochet. Now we're going to chain 1, and we're able to go over here. We're going to make sure that we don't try to jump down into this space. We're going to go into the very next chain 5 space, and we're going to count 1, 2, 3, and go into that 3rd chain and do a single crochet. Now we're going to chain 3, 1, 2, and 3, and we're going to move over here to the next chain 5 space. We're going to count 1, 2, 3, making sure we go into that 3rd chain, and we're going to go right into there and do our single crochet. And now we're reaching up here to the peak. We're going to go ahead and do our 8 double crochets and repeat what we just did. We're going to do the same exact thing and work our next little floral fan section right here. We're going to work that again. So I've got 3 double crochets. Here's number 4, number 5, number 6, number 7, number 8. Double check your count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Now we're going to go ahead and anchor down in this next chain 5 space. We're going to go right there into that top of the 3rd chain, or right into the 3rd chain, and do a single crochet. Now we're going to chain up 4, 1, 2, 3, and 4, and we're going to turn our work. So now we're going to be doing those double crochet clusters, where we're going to cluster 2 of these double crochets from the previous row together. So we're going to go ahead and do the first cluster, working into those next 2 stitches, 3 loops on my hook, pull through all 3, chain 3, 1, 2, and 3. We're going to go into the next double crochet, insert our hook and pull up a loop, pull through 2. We're going to hold it. We're going to do the next one right beside it, the next stitch. Got 3 loops on our hook. We're going to pull through all 3 loops. We've just clustered that together. Now we're going to chain 3. Remember, you've got 4. You want to end up with 4 of the clusters in this section. Each of these little floral fans will have 4 of these clusters. So that's my third one. I'm going to chain 3 in between each of those. I'm going to come down. I'm at my last 2 stitches. I'm going to go ahead and cluster those together. And now we're going to chain 2 and come down into this chain 3 right here. And we're going to work into that center stitch. So we're going to skip the first stitch, go right there in the second one, and do a single crochet. Now we're going to chain 1, and we're going to turn our work. We're going to do 2 single crochets right there on that chain 2. So we're going to do 2 single crochets. Now we're going to jump, and we're going to be working in our chain 3 spaces. So we're going to do a single crochet, a half double crochet, 2 double crochets. There's 1, here's 2. Now we're going to do a half double crochet all on that same chain 3. Haven't moved over, working on that same chain 3. Now we're going to jump over here to the next chain 3 space and do a single crochet, a half double crochet, 2 double crochets, all onto that same chain 3. A half double crochet and then a single crochet. Now we're going to move into our last one. We're going to do a single crochet on that chain 3, half double crochet worked around that same chain 3. Now 2 double crochets. There's 1, here's 2. Now a half double crochet, and last but not least, a single crochet. So now we're here at the end. We're right here at this chain 4 that we began with. We're going to go on to that chain 4, we're going to work a single crochet right around it, and then we're going to make sure that we're in the 3rd chain. We're going to insert our hook and work a single crochet right there to anchor that. Now we're going to chain 1, and in this case, since we're at our peak, we've now met the peak of our work. We're just going to go right down into that chain, or I'm sorry, into that single crochet there in the center, and that's where we're going to do our single crochet to lock it down. So just like that. So now what we're going to need to do is we're going to need to go ahead and slip on over. We're going to be doing the same thing, same exact thing on this other side. So we're going to pause right here, and I'm going to get myself repositioned so you can see this a little bit better. Alright, so I'm repositioned now, and before we move on, the one thing I want you to do is go ahead and put a stitch marker in that single crochet so you can identify it. So you want to slip that in there. So now what we're going to need to do is slip stitch over. So I'm going into this chain 5 space, and I'm going into that first chain, and I'm just going to pull through to do a slip stitch. And I'm going to do that a second time. Insert, pull up a loop, pull it on through the loop that's on our hook. And now we're going to move right here. We're going to be in the 3rd chain, and that's the one we want to get into. We want to slip stitch into that 3rd chain. So we're going to slip stitch over 3 times. Now we're going to go ahead and start doing our 8 double crochets into the very next chain 5 space. So we've made it over there. We're going to mimic exactly what we did on the one side. We're going to do the same thing. So I've got 3 double crochets so far. Here's number 4, number 5, number 6, number 7, and number 8. Double check our count. 2, 4, 6, 8. So now I'm going to go ahead and move over here to the next chain 5 space. 1, 2, 3. I want to go into that third chain and do a single crochet. Now we're going to chain up 4. 1, 2, 3, and 4. And we're going to turn our work. And now we're going to begin doing those clusters again. So we're going to insert here into the very first stitch, pulling up a loop. We're going to pull through 2 and we're going to hold it. Insert into the very next stitch, pulling up a loop, pull through 2, hold it, 3 loops on our hook. So we're going to pull through all 3 loops. Now we're going to chain 3, 1, 2, and 3. And we're going to move on to the very next stitch. And we're going to do the same thing. We're going to do the double crochet cluster. We've got those right there. We're going to go right there into the very next stitch. So we're just doing that cluster total of 4 times with a chain 3 in between. Now we're going to do my third one. We're going into the very next stitch, pulling up a loop, pulling through 2 and holding it. Go into the very next stitch, insert your hook and pull up a loop, pull through 2 and hold it. 3 loops on our hook, and we're going to pull through all 3 loops. Now we're going to chain 3 again, and we're going to do it one more time, finishing out this little section. Go ahead and cluster those last 2 stitches together. And now we're now here at the center again. We're back up here at our center. We've marked it with that stitch marker. We're going to chain 2, 1 and 2. And we're going to come down and we're going to put our single crochet right here in that same single crochet. So we're just going to go ahead and do our single crochet right there. Now we're going to chain 1 and we're going to turn our work. So now we can go ahead and just move that stitch marker up into that next single crochet we just did, just to kind of keep position. Got a chain 1 on our hook. We're going to go ahead and do 2 single crochets right there around that chain 2 space. And now we're going to jump over here into the chain 3 just like we've been doing, and we're going to do a single crochet, then a half double crochet, 2 double crochets. There's 1, here's 2, all worked around that same chain 3. Now we have a half double and a single. And that finishes out that little fan section. Jump over here to the next chain 3 space and repeat that. So you're going to do that again. Same exact thing. Just like that. So now you're going to move into the next chain 3. Single crochet, half double crochet, 2 double crochets, a half double crochet, and a single crochet. And now we're here at the chain 4. We're going to do a single crochet right around that chain 4, and then we're going to go right there into the third chain. We're going to work right into that third chain and do another single crochet. Now we chain 1, we come over here to the very next chain 5 space. We don't want to work in this one. If you pull up on your work, you can see it. We've already worked in this one. We want to come over here, go into the third chain and do a single crochet. So from here, it's exactly what you've been doing. You're going to chain 3, go over here to the next chain 5 space, find the third chain, the one right there in the center, and do a single crochet, and then you'll be working your 8 double crochets and so on. So you're going to finish out this side and we'll meet up at the very end, and I'll make sure that you do your last portion correctly. So you're going to do your last fan. You'll notice over here, if you stop and take a look at your work, got your 2 here in the center, and then you've got 2 here on the side. Okay, so we're going to meet up after you've finished this last one. We'll make sure we finish out the row together. Alright, so we are here at the end. We've completed this little floral fan. I have a chain 1 on my hook, and we only have one last loop in this row to work into. So we're going to count 1, 1, 2, 3, and go into that third chain and do our single crochet. And now we're going to be moving up to the final round that we're going to be doing on this lace section, and this is going to be laying our foundation so we can switch back to the granny. So we want to start out this row by chaining 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7, and we're going to turn our work. So now we're going to do a triple crochet. So we're going to wrap our yarn around our hook twice, and we're going to come down here into this space right here beside where we just came up. We're going to go into that chain space, and we're going to pull up a loop. We're going to grab our yarn and pull through 2, grab our yarn and pull through 2, grab our yarn and pull through 2. So this first part of this chain is acting as the double or the triple crochet. Alright, so this is going to begin our repeat for what we're doing to set up this foundation. We're going to chain 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And we're going to come over here to our little floral fan, little lacy part that we did. And we're going to do a double crochet right there in between the 2 double crochets that we placed here in this little fan area. So you're going to identify your double crochet and go right in between. Just work right directly in there and do a double crochet. And now we're going to chain 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And you're going to come over here to this next little fan area. Go right there in between the 2 double crochets and do a double crochet. Now we're going to chain 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And we're going to come over here to the third one, and we're going to go right there in between the 2 double crochets, and we're going to do a double crochet. Just like that. Oops. Try not to lose your yarn like me. So a double crochet. And now we're going to chain 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now we're going to do the triple crochet again. So we're going to wrap our yarn around our hook twice. And we're going to come down here to where we did our single crochet. Down here on this row where we did the single crochet, that's where we're going to go into. Go into that spot, and then we're going to pull through 2, pull through 2, and pull through 2. Now we're going to chain 5 again. That's the beginning of the repeat, and we're going to do the same thing all the way down. And when we get to the center, the peak of the shawl, I will meet back up with you and show you what you do in the center, which is essentially the same exact thing, but we'll just do that center together. So here we are at our peak, and let me go ahead and lay this down so you can see. So right here at our peak, I have a chain 5 on my hook. We're going to be doing that triple crochet. We're going to wrap our yarn twice around our hook. We're going to come down here, and right there in that center, we are going, there's a single crochet, I believe, right there. We're going to insert, and we're going to complete that triple crochet right there in that center. Now we're going to chain 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And then we're going to begin doing our double crochets in between the 2 double crochets. So you just find right there in between, go directly around and do a double crochet. And you're going to continue on the same way that you have been all the way down this side of the shawl. And then we'll meet back up at the end, and we'll do the very end together so that we can repeat exactly how we began. That's how we're going to end it. So we want to go on down, keep working in the same way. This is what you're starting to look like. You've got a nice little foundation here for us to work our granny stitch on to continue on. Alright, so we're back here at the end of this row. I'm going to go ahead and chain 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And as you'll see here, we've just finished this last little fan part of our little floral lace section. So we're going to go ahead and wrap our yarn twice around our hook, and we're going to go into that chain space just like we did before, and we're going to work around it to form or finish off that triple crochet. So we're just going to go right there. Now we're going to chain a total of 3, and we're going to wrap our yarn twice around our hook, and we are going to find a little single crochet right there. We're going to find that stitch, and that's where we're going to do our last triple crochet. So now if you take a look right here at this side and this side where we began, if we stretch this out, you can see they are the same, or they will work out looking the same anyway. So now from here we're going to go ahead and move on over to part 2, and that is where we're going to be placing our granny stitch back in. We're going to be working 5 more rows of that. You're going to need to stay with me through the next lace section because it's going to start out a little bit differently than this first one. So we're going to need to do that together so that everybody will stay on track with it. And then we'll be working another granny section after that, and then another lace section together before I leave you guys off onto your own. So this is probably going to be a 3-part video for this particular shawl. So hopefully you guys have enjoyed, and you will join me over on part 2 so that we can go ahead and transition back to the granny.